What if one of humanity's greatest inventions began with nothing more than a fallen tree? Long before ships crossed oceans, humans had to solve a simple but terrifying problem. How do you cross water when you cannot swim far enough? Rivers blocked hunting grounds, lakes separated people from food, and coastlines offered resources that were impossible to reach from land. Water was everywhere, but humans were built for land. Then, somehow, we learned to float. The first boat was probably nothing like the boats we imagine today. There was no sail, no wooden deck, no steering wheel, no carefully designed hull. It may have been nothing more than a piece of wood that happened to stay on the surface. A person watching it float could have noticed something important. Wood does not sink like stone, and if a human could hold on to it, water suddenly became a little less dangerous. But holding on to a log was not enough. The log moved wherever the water wanted. So humans began experimenting. They could sit on it, they could lie across it, they could hold several pieces together, and eventually they discovered something even more useful. A hollowed tree trunk could carry a person. This was the beginning of the dugout canoe. The idea sounds simple now, but think about what it required. Someone had to look at a massive tree and imagine that the inside could become empty space. Then they had to remove enough wood without destroying the structure. Stone tools could slowly chop, scrape, and burn away the center. Fire was especially useful. Instead of cutting every piece by hand, people could burn sections of the wood and scrape away the charcoal. Little by little, a tree became a vessel, and suddenly the water was no longer just something to cross, it became a place humans could travel through. We do not know exactly when the first boat was invented. Wood usually disappears over thousands of years. It rots, it breaks apart, and eventually almost nothing remains. That means the oldest boat we discover may be much younger than the first boat humans ever built. But archaeology gives us clues. One of the oldest known boats is the Pessie canoe, found in the Netherlands. It dates to roughly 8,000 years ago. It is made from a single hollowed tree trunk, and although it looks extremely simple, it tells us something extraordinary. People thousands of years ago already understood how to transform a tree into a machine for moving across water. But the story probably began much earlier than written history, possibly long before agriculture, because humans did not need farms to need boats. Hunters and gatherers lived beside rivers, lakes, and seas, and water contained food. Fish, shellfish, birds, plants, and animals that gathered near the shore. A floating platform could bring humans closer to all of them. But there was another problem: stability. A narrow log can float, but it can also roll. One wrong movement could send a person into cold water. So humans discovered another clever solution: put more logs together. A group of floating logs becomes harder to roll. Tie them together and you have a raft. It is not elegant, but it works, and sometimes the simplest technology is the most powerful. Rafts could carry people, food, tools, and materials. They could also become wider and stronger as humans learned how to connect different pieces of wood. But humans did not stop there. They wanted more control. A raft could float, a log could float, but neither could easily go exactly where you wanted. That's where the paddle changed everything. A branch pushed against the water, and the water pushed back. That simple interaction allowed humans to move forward, then backward, then sideways, and eventually to turn. For the first time, humans were not simply passengers on water. They were controlling their movement. But steering created another challenge. How do you make a boat move faster? The answer was hidden in the shape. A wide, flat object is stable, but it pushes against more water. A narrow object can move more efficiently. So over generations, people could experiment with different shapes. Longer, narrower, wider, deeper, higher at the front. Every successful design could teach the next generation something. And this is one of the most fascinating parts of ancient technology. Humans did not need equations to understand physics. They learned through experience. A boat that tipped over taught one lesson. A boat that moved quickly taught another. A boat that carried more weight revealed something else. Knowledge accumulated, not in books, in memory, in tradition, in stories, and eventually, boats became more than simple tools. They became a way to reach places that were previously unreachable. But how far could ancient humans actually travel? That question becomes much stranger when we look at islands. Islands are separated from continents by water, and some islands were reached by humans thousands of years ago. That means people were not always staying close to shore. At some point, humans deliberately entered open water. They could not always see the destination. They could not rely on landmarks the way they could on land. They had to trust something else. The sea, the sky, the wind, the position of the sun, the movement of waves. And perhaps knowledge passed down through generations. Imagine sitting inside a primitive boat with nothing but open water around you. There is no engine beneath you, no radio, no GPS, no satellite map, just wood beneath your body, wind above your head, and an enormous ocean in every direction. Yet, humans did it. They crossed stretches of water long before modern navigation existed. And this tells us something important about boat invention. The first boats were probably not created by someone suddenly deciding to invent a boat. They were the result of thousands of tiny discoveries. Someone noticed wood floating. Someone learned to hold on to it. Someone tied pieces together. Someone discovered paddling. Someone shaped the wood. Someone improved the design. And someone eventually became brave enough to go farther. Technology often develops this way, not as one brilliant moment, but as a chain of small ideas. Each generation inherits the previous generation's discoveries, then changes them, then passes them forward. But there is another reason boats were so important. They changed what humans considered a boundary. Before boats, a river could be an obstacle. After boats, it could become a highway. A lake could separate two communities. After boats, it could connect them. The coastline could be the edge of the world. After boats, it could become the beginning of a journey. People could move farther. They could transport heavier loads. They could exchange materials. They could meet distant communities. They could explore unfamiliar shores. And eventually, entire civilizations would grow around waterways. But perhaps the most surprising thing is that humans did not need to conquer the ocean immediately. The first victory was much smaller. It was simply staying afloat. Think about how strange that achievement really is. Humans are land animals. Our bodies are not naturally designed for long-distance travel across water. Yet we created something that allowed our bodies to enter an environment where they did not belong. We built an extension of ourselves, a floating piece of the land, wood beneath us, water around us, and suddenly the limits in the human body became less important. That is what makes the invention of the boat so significant. It was not simply a new way to travel, it was a way to escape the physical limitations of being human. And once humans learned that a piece of wood could carry them across water, an enormous possibility opened. If wood could carry one person, perhaps it could carry two. If two people could travel together, perhaps they could carry food. If they could carry food, they could travel farther. If they could travel farther, they could reach places no one in their community had ever seen. And if they could reach those places, they could build new lives there. The humble log had become something much bigger. It had become a bridge between worlds. And maybe that is the strangest part of the entire story. The first boat probably did not look impressive. It may have been rough, heavy, uneven, slow, but it represented a radical idea. that the environment did not have to decide where humans could go. Humans could change the rules. A forest could become a canoe. A fallen tree could become transportation. A river could become a road. And an ocean could become a destination. We often imagine ancient technology as primitive because it lacked modern machines, but perhaps that is the wrong way to look at it. Ancient humans had fewer tools. They had fewer materials. They had no engines, no computers, no modern science. Yet they observed the world carefully. They tested ideas. They remembered failures. They copied success. And slowly, they turned nature into technology. The first boat may have been little more than a floating tree, but from that simple idea came canoes, rafts, sailing vessels, fishing boats, trading ships, warships, and eventually the enormous ships that connect the modern world. All of it began with the same basic question: what if we could float? And once humans answered that question, the world became much larger. Because sometimes the greatest inventions do not begin with complicated machines. They begin when someone looks at something ordinary and realizes it could do something extraordinary. A tree could float, and humans decided to climb aboard.